What is going on, Bengals Nation? Welcome to the Running Through the Jungle podcast. It's your host, Justin Lacey. Today, I'm flying solo with you all. B Dirt is actually out of town, and so he's not going to be able to join me for tonight's episode. So you got me, Bengals fans. You got me tonight. So I'm happy to join with you guys. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Please be able to give the bell to the notifications because every little bit helps. We're growing a channel as quick as possible, and everything helps with that. And we appreciate to all of our loyal listeners thus far that we have grown, and just happy to be with you. So it's not going to be a long episode tonight. I'm joining you tonight because I still got some things to get off of my mind. I'm still not quite over week 1 yet, but I do understand we need to move on to week 2 now. But there was a few things I need to get off my chest. Obviously, as we're recording this, it's on a Wednesday evening. The press conference has already been had. Joe Burrow spoke to the media. Zach Taylor spoke to the media. We'll get into that as we go through this episode today. But I do want to start off with how I started this episode from our previous discussion when we talked about the post-game review, the Roaring Review. So if you guys had tuned into that show, my ultimate take was I had to pin it on Joe Burrow for now, even though there was plenty of blame to go around for week 1's debacle. 24-3, that was just unacceptable. But I can't necessarily put that on the defense. The defense played their ass off. And if it wasn't for the offense being as lackluster they were, they probably would have pitched an even better game. But the offense didn't do them much of a favor. Um, I don't really put it on the running game too much just because I thought Joe Mixon was running hard when he did get his opportunities. It didn't feel like that he was out of touch or out of sync with anything. It didn't feel like that he was scared to hit the hole. He made nice cuts, juke, long runs, trucking over people, but they stopped going to him ultimately because they still believe that Joe Burrow, and I agree, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback on the field that day in Cleveland. Well, Joe Burrow didn't have a great day. He didn't play like the best quarterback, let alone the best player on that field that day. And to his counterpart over across the state line in Cleveland, Deshaun Watson didn't have a really good day neither. But Joe Burrow, this one fell on his shoulders for me more specifically because he just knows he got to be better when he plays against the Cleveland Browns. Joe Burrow has lost now 5 games against the Cleveland Browns. He's 1-5. That is a lot. Andy Dalton has had 5 losses total in his entire 9-year career with the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't believe me? We'll go back and watch. Or we won't watch, but I'll count them down for you. Andy Dalton came into the league in 2011. He swept the Browns his first 2 seasons. He swept the Browns that season in his rookie year. In 2012, he split with them, so he got 1 loss. In 2013, he split, so that's 2 losses. In 2014, he split with them. He got 3 losses. In 2015, 16, and 17, Andy Dalton wiped the floor with the Cleveland Browns. In 2018, he got a loss, even though the Cleveland Browns split. Even though the Cleveland Browns swept the season series, because that was the year the Baker Mania started coming alive. Andy Dalton was not a part of that second loss, but he did get a 4th loss to them, the first one. For those that remember, he also got hurt that game, and Jeff Driscoll had to come in and rest that game. And in 2019, Andy Dalton's final year, he had another loss against the Cleveland Browns, the first matchup. He did ultimately end up winning his last game as a Bengal against the Cleveland Browns. That's 5 matchups that he lost against Cleveland. And the rest of the time, he's won them all. Joe Burrow has lost 5 games against the Cleveland Browns. That is way too many times. And I understand the Browns are supposed to be the Browns. They're supposed to be this dysfunctional, this organization that's just always chaotic, a mess that always have a ton of stuff going on. But you know what? The competition that they have displayed on this past Sunday, and actually in the last few years, have demonstrated that the Cleveland Browns should not be an organization that people should be taking any lightly, as far as like that they're a train wreck, even though they have historically displayed their dysfunctional ways over the years. But he got to get better against this team. No other team doesn't lose this much to the Cleveland Browns other than the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's what's frustrating about all of this. We are talking about a quarterback who we collectively as Bengal fans view as the second best quarterback in the entire NFL, with the potential that probably by the end of this year, he may be jockeying with the number 1 spot with Mahomes. I get him. Mahomes got 2 championship rings, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. But we believe that Joe Burrow can supplant Mahomes, being that they've won the head-to-head matchup 3 times to 1 in favor of Burrow. But part of my inclination of making those statements is that going into this season, he should have handled business and winning a game that people thought that he struggles against the team that was not supposed to happen week 1. That's why it's so frustrating to me and why I still don't feel right not moving past it without addressing that. And as we move on to week 2, let's recall some things here. Baltimore is a team that we played twice out of the last 5 games that we played them, I believe. We played the Ravens twice, and now we're going into a third matchup here with them, and they're not going to take this matchup lightly at all. I did hear a quote, I believe, from Roquan Smith saying he's going to play through the whistle, and if we don't like it, tough luck. Get over it. You already know what the mentality they're going to be coming with. And now it's time that we got to show that we can deliver and punch them in the mouth. This is week 2 now, and this is the second division game in a row. You do not need to start off 0-2 on the season, let alone 0-2 in a division. You're vying for a third straight AFC North division title here. We believe, and at least I know I believe, that the Cincinnati Bengals can be Super Bowl champions this year. We have the roster, we have the talent, we have the playmakers, we have everything at our disposal. And very fortunately, we did not come out of that week 1 loss with a plethora of injuries, because that game could have went a hell of a lot worse. It was raining, people were not getting their footings right. Joe Burrow wasn't looking right. He was looking very skittish. He could have got hurt in that game. And if those that watched the Monday night game against the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills saw what happened to Aaron Rodgers on that field, we got to be a little bit more grateful that Joe Burrow he kind of took it easy a little bit. Now, it's not saying that he should have played harder and should have played better. It's not saying that at all. But he was just coming off of a calf injury. And I know people are going to make a lot of comments about the preseason. We'll get into that as well. But I got to be grateful that he didn't end this game with an injury that could have potentially taken him out the season like Aaron Rodgers did. I feel for Jets fans right now. I really do. I feel for Aaron Rodgers. I feel for his teammates. I feel for the coaches there. Right now, I got a sentimental attachment to the New York Jets right now, and it's very weird because I thought that they would have won on Monday night, but I thought that they would have won because Rodgers was there and his presence was there. But I really loved how they just rallied around each other and picked themselves up and wiped the tears off their face, and then not felt sorry for themselves and went out there and bust ass and won the game. And the game that looked very much in doubt, because when they look on the other side of the coin, you got to face Josh Allen and them Buffalo Bills, and they have a really good defense too. But we're talking about our Bengals here. This is not an NFL or Bills Mafia podcast. This is the Bengals. We need to take these lessons. We need to lick our wounds and be able to stand up. You got punched in the mouth. We made some comments over the week, and we had to stand up and deliver and take the heat. We play like trash. Joe Burrow play like ass. And that's not common for him to do. But I think it is very apparent that, you know what, just because I look at him as superhuman, that even Superman have off days too. I'm just really tired of that kryptonite is being the Cleveland Browns. Now, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to dive a little bit more into the conversation that's been floating around Bengals Twitter and, Bengals media about should players play in preseason games as a reflection of their poor performances in week 1. And then we'll also dive a little bit more into the matchup against with the Ravens, because, again, as much as I'm still not really fully past week 1, it's time to move on to week 2. So we're going to pay some bills. We'll take a little quick break, and then we're going to get right back to it. All right. Thank you so much for joining me again today. Once again, I'm Justin Lacey flying solo today as Brandon Herriott is out right now. He'll be joining us again when we do our post game reactions and our next episode with the Running Through the Jungle podcast. Also, do not forget to check out our boy Chase Younts with the Cut to the Chase podcast. He just dropped an episode with Bengals Blitz, giving his takes of not only just this past week with the debacle in Cleveland, but also his takes going on with week 2 going into the game against the Ravens. All right. If we listen to now as we're recording this, it is on a Wednesday evening. The press conference of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow were already stated. Now it's time to dive a little bit into those. But more or less, let me talk about something to draw a little bit of parallel from what happened week 1 in terms of why most people feel like it's important to play in the preseason game. And I'll also give you my takes for it. Now, what you want to hear is, you know what, preseason, it is important now. You got to reevaluate this because you came out rusty out the gate. You didn't look good. And now it's time for you to bite the bullet and be like, all right, now you got to shake off more preseason rust because you didn't get those reps together in training camp or in preseason like you should have. Because now this is why the reason why you look like what you did with that awful piss poor showcasing on week 1. I'm here to tell you, man, it just depends on a year and how you're evaluating your team going into each training camp and each preseason game prior to that. I didn't think that the Bengals did anything egregious. I think that they practiced hard. They withheld most of their starters, at least on the offensive side of the ball. They held their starters back because they know that they don't want to risk injuries on that side of the ball because that's the side of the ball that they are allocating future and current resources, monetary resources into right now. They spent a lot on that O line. How would you have felt if Orlando Brown Jr. plays multiple reps, just one drive on a preseason game, and he gets hurt and he's now lost for like 6 to 8 weeks at the beginning to start the regular season? Wouldn't make you feel really good about that. How would you feel if we would have lost Irv Smith Jr. on the second drive of preseason, knowing he had an injury history coming off of 2 straight years where he just did not finish the season healthy at all? He's finally getting this first year action to actually go into a season healthy and feel like he can be productive in this offense. And I still think he could do that. That would have went down the drain if he would have got hurt in week 2 of preseason. I did like what they did with the defense. If those you don't remember, the Bengals decided to let their first unit defense in the second preseason game play for one drive and one drive only. And they got those reps. It was a nice long drive where they had played a bend but don't break defense, and they ended up with the Mike Hilton tips and Joseph Asai interception that he had got off from Desmond Ritter. And that was a great showcasing. That was what they probably needed. Now they probably would have loved to have a 3 and out, you know, but the Falcons was running their first unit offense too, and what they wanted to just showcase with their rushing attack. So I didn't have a problem with how that drive went, but it was good to see the defense get out there like that. But I also agree with the many of the fans that while you do want to play it safe with a lot of our starters and not risk them with any action. We already had a scare with our starting quarterback with this going down with this calf injury in day 2 of training camp in July. You don't really want to run a risk with a lot of different players because you are vying for a championship this season. You are and still should be, even after the bad loss, you should still feel like that you are one of the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. It was just an ugly week. And I'm happy to tell myself that and tell others that. But also the Cincinnati Bengals, they got to showcase that talent moving forward. But my feelings on preseason is you got to just let it play out in a case by case situation. It's not going to be pretty no matter how you look at it. We looked across the league and oh my goodness, man, I saw some horrible football. Pittsburgh looked bad against San Francisco, and that's the team that played all of their starters in every game. They went 3-0 in preseason. They looked good, only to get just completely boat race at home by, I believe, is the best team in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. Again, I mentioned Cleveland. Deshaun Watson played. He played a number of bit in the preseason. He looked skittish and rusty at times here and there, and overthrew some guys. That carryover into the regular season, I don't think Deshaun Watson looked great at all either. You know what I mean? He did okay. He ultimately ended up settling down into the game plan once he realized that they had to win the game by defense and running game, and he sort of aligned his talent along with it. But at the end of the day, Deshaun Watson did not look that great. Baltimore, I mean, I believe that they had like the undefeated record streak with preseason football until week 2 of that season. And then they lost to Washington, and then I think they lost again the following week after. But Baltimore didn't look great offensively either. Lamar Jackson, he was overthrowing receivers. I watched their game against the Houston Texans as well. It didn't look very well. Yeah, well, I watched highlights. It didn't look good at all. Honestly, it didn't look very promising. Now, Baltimore is a team that is facing a ton of injuries and a lot of questions. But one thing I'll give Baltimore some credit is their togetherness is very empowering, and is that they're a really great next man up kind of team. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that. But even when you go across the league, our biggest contenders that also align in the AFC as well too. Kansas City, Buffalo. Those are two teams that are also indicative of being a powerhouse in the conference. They also lost week 1, and they didn't look their very best at all. And their starters did also play a lot in the preseason as well too. So take the preseason what you may. But at the end of the day, it's a year-to-year situation based on how you are evaluating your team and where they're currently at and where we're currently feeling right now. Prior to the last game, going into the year, we felt pretty confident that regardless of the reps, you want to see them ramp it up at practice, and that you're just going to trust the continuity and the development that this team had made over the last 2 seasons, that they were going to figure it out. And that's what I thought. I was dead as wrong. I came on this show, and if those that had recalled doing the Strange Love show with John from the Cleveland Browns, he had came as a guest on our show when we did the Strange Love crossover episode, and I had made some comments. One of the comments that I made was that when we did the score predictions, first of all, I told them to be careful, Browns fans, because the only reason why they set in this line of what it was is because they're banking on the history that Joe Burrow has against the Cleveland Browns so far. Because I was based off of wishful thinking, and I was wrong. I also said that the Browns was going to lose by like 10 points. I thought the Bengals were going to put up 30 points, and that they were going to just slam the door shut on the mentality or the psyche that Cleveland has over Joe Burrow. And unfortunately, I was wrong on that. So, hey, week 1 is weird, man. Week 1 is insanely weird. But I have to damn eat crow on that one because I was in a good mindset with it and I had a good place of it. Well, when I made those comments, and it wasn't trying to come off as disrespectful to Cleveland. I just felt that Cleveland wasn't on our level, that they don't understand what they got to do to get to the level that we have been at. And I still feel that way still. But however, Cleveland has more than solidified my respect for them as a football team. They have put together a great defensive game plan against us. They kicked us in the teeth. They did, you know. And when I think about their pass rusher, Myles Garrett wasn't really the one that I even was frightening over. It was more or less Darius Smith. He had to get off speed too. Dalvin Tomlinson was a great addition for them. Orakwo, I believe that was another addition that they made from Houston. I think he was in on the first sack of Joe Burrow, of one of the 2 sacks that they had on us. So a lot can be made of how you feel about the Cleveland Browns, but I have a great deal amount of respect for what they have built on their defense side of the football team and the personnel that they placed. It was great work by them, and I also mentioned their secondary was just it was just top to bottom, from corners to safeties. I know the free agent addition of Juan Thornhill, who didn't even play, and they still had a great game. But I also like to think that that was more so because of the pass rush getting at Joe Burrow and making him look skittish in the pocket, and also delivering some really bad throws as well too. So I'm not buying too much stock into the Cleveland Browns and saying that they're going to be one great ass football team. I'm not there yet. I got to see it on a consistent level basis because again, week 1 is weird, and they may have a chance to go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers week 2. But Pittsburgh is also dealing with a lot of stuff that they got to figure out themselves too. So really, the real season and the true test of what the identity of most teams are going to ultimately be tends to come in week 5 or week 6 when it's in October, when the weather starts to change and people start to figure themselves out and start to connect the dots on everything. But again, no excuses. We played bad. They played all right. They played great on defense. And it's time to move on. Like I said, now it's the Ravens. Let's talk about these Ravens. Zach Taylor's press conference was very eye-opening of how well he knows their personnel, more specifically on the defensive side of the ball. When you think of the Baltimore Ravens, the first person that comes to mind, obviously, is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson hasn't lost a game in Cincinnati, believe it or not. He should have, but due to a number of games that he set out because it were injuries or contract holdouts and stuff, and then use injuries as a reasoning for it, Lamar Jackson is still undefeated, technically speaking, in games against the Bengals here in Cincinnati. That got to end this Sunday, man. If you're a Bengals fan, that's going to make you sick to your stomach because for the second week in a row, you can absolutely lose this game because I believe that Baltimore is a better team than Cleveland is. Overall, better team than Cleveland is. And actually, I think they have a better defense than the Browns. They really do. Their captain and their leader on that side of the ball is Roquan Smith. And I've said this many of times on this show. He is a guy that unlocks the defense by himself. He brings the best out of their defensive core, more or less the linebacking core. Patrick Queen was all but done with the Ravens. You sign Roquan Smith, or you trade for Roquan Smith, and then you extend him to that nice deal that he got last year. All of a sudden, Patrick Queen is looking like a formidable linebacker that can play to his strengths now, and that he doesn't necessarily have to play the mic. And I don't even know if he even played the mic. I just know that his play was just not living up to the expectations of what Ravens fans wanted and what the team wanted. They didn't even pick up his 5th-year option, but they may sign him to an extension after the year is up if he has the same kind of season once Roquan Smith got there and he produced and he produces again. What I'm hoping for is Joe Burrow don't go out there and make Roquan Smith look like a reincarnation of Terrell Suggs. That is going to be ugly. I don't think I'm sorry, not Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen. Do not make Patrick Queen look like a reincarnation of Terrell Suggs. Let me get myself clear there. I don't want to see that happen. I don't think that high of Patrick Queen. I really don't. I think that he is a average linebacker that needs guys around him to play up to the level that he could be to his potential, and he sometimes get trucked over. That's how I feel. And now I think that he has a great mental toughness about him. I saw that when he was at LSU with that same Joe Burrow team that won him the championship. But at the same time, it's not really living up to the same bill of health while he's in the pros. And it's not like that he's injury prone. He's a solid player, but it's not someone that I would truly build my linebacking core around. And I think the Ravens fans and the Ravens organization saw that. And boy, did Roquan Smith rescue his career so far. But more importantly, they have a collection of pass rushers. Metabuke, they still have Adafe Owe, if I'm not mistaken. Their secondary, Kyle Hamilton, has come into his own really well. I also know he made some comments about last year's playoff game being kind of mid. I didn't really get a chance to put together what he mean by that full quote, if he's making it as a diss towards us or if he's just saying, it was a whatever kind of game, but they just happened to win it. Whatever it is, I think that he's coming to his own very well as a safety. Marcus Williams did just go down with an injury. They got a lot of injuries, and that team looks beaten up coming here to the jungle, which should play to our strengths. But let me why you shouldn't play. Let me why you shouldn't put too much stock into the Ravens' injuries. It's simple, man. They're a really good next man up team. Mark Andrews, as many of the times that us Bengal fans we have talked about, if we would have not had 3 linebackers down with injuries, we would have. I mean, not linebackers, offensive linemen in the AFC Championship game. There's a great chance that we would have won, or the Chiefs probably would have game planned a different way to stop you. Because last time I checked, the reason why outside of the bad offensive linemen, Is the reason why we lost you the game is because they also had a really good coverage game in the secondary as well too. But we don't talk about those things. It was still a great AFC Championship game, and I'm not trying to hash out those old wounds. We're talking about the Ravens. The Ravens have dealt with a plethora of injuries all throughout last year as well too. And I'm not even going to talk about Lamar Jackson. That's obvious. Mark Andrews was a guy that missed some time too, but yet Isaiah Likely was a guy that stepped right up on in there at starting tight end and produced. Caught big plays for caught big plays for Lamar, and I remember specifically when he was going against the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Mark Andrews wasn't there for that game, but Isaiah Likely was, and he likely caught a touchdown if I recall my memory. The point that I'm getting is that the next man up philosophy with Baltimore reigns supreme out there too. I wouldn't say they reign supreme as the best to do it, but they're one of the best teams that can do it. But at the same time, there are those periods where that one injury will break the straw on it. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think the Ravens are there right now. They also lost J.K. Dobbins for the year when they were switching to the offensive side of the ball. Um, I feel sorry for him, man. His career is just kind of going down the toilet because injuries got the best of him, and his body is sort of portraying him. I thought he was a strong runner, powerful runner too, fast guy. And I remember he cooked us at the end of 2020 when our season was all but done and cashed in after Burrow's injury. We played the Ravens the last game of the season, and he just ran wild on us. We ain't had no starters. We had nobody left in that game, and they ended up beating us. I remember 38-3. I will not forget it. But they also got a collection of backs too behind him that can produce well. He still got Gus Edwards, they still got Justice Hill, and Lamar Jackson is still a lethal runner too with the football. So we can't forget about these things that the running game does not center around J.K. Dobbins, but it centers around more Lamar Jackson's mobility because he's the one that enhances the volume of the rushing attack. That still has not changed with Baltimore. Now they're still also trying to figure things out with their new coordinator Todd Monken, with the addition of the new receivers like Zay Flowers, who they've drafted in the first round, Odell Beckham. I'm not sure what kind of day Odell Beckham Jr. had on this past Sunday, but I know Zay Flowers looked it pretty quick and shifty when he was out there. But then again, how much is that him versus playing going against the Texans? This is going to be a hell of a lot of a different test for Zay Flowers going against our secondary. It's young, but it's strong, and our defense, they're fast. It's quick. We have crafted our defense to be able to stop guys like Lamar Jackson to perform at his best on a natural level. So while we have our work cut out for us, the Ravens also have their work cut out for us as well too. So we'll see how this thing goes. I'm really excited to where we can just put week one behind us. As I'm talking to him, this is more or less therapy for me too, guys. So thank you for bearing with me on this episode as I go on this long rant. I'm trying my best to just say, you know what, week one is what it is. We'll see them Cleveland Brownies again too, and it'll be a whole different story. I just also hope that by the end when we do see them, it would be for more to gain for us, and we are going to be ready to show it because it's going to be at home this time. And last time the Browns came here at home, we whooped their ass. So, but we got to whoop the Baltimore Ravens ass. It ain't no pun intended. Now I'm actually going to talk about us and our game plan to stop these Ravens. The game plan that you had against the Cleveland Browns, there could be some similarities that you can utilize, but that game plan was terrible for the Browns. You should have incorporated the rushing attack with the Browns, but you didn't. And when you finally did, it was too late. With the Ravens are a really good secondary schematic by throwing simulating different pass rushes from different ways. They still implement a little bit of that Wink Martindale approach from where they used to have him as their defense coordinator. Now it's Mike McDonald. They still simulate the pressures in multiple different ways, whether if it's Roquan Smith, who fakes dropping the coverage and comes down in the blitz in the box to just blitz drop from there. Whether if it's just trying to get their edge rushers on the side, whether if it's one of the safeties coming down from doing the safety blitz or a corner blitz, whether they're running fire zones. There is so much that they can do on that defensive side of the ball that you can't just establish the rushing attack for this game. But you do need to run the ball to some extent to show that they need to still respect it. You still got one of the better running backs, in my opinion, than Joe Mixon. Again, he ran hard last Sunday. Let him try to run hard again this Sunday because he's at home. He's juiced up. He's energized. He knows this Ravens team really well. If there's anybody on this Ravens team that knows that defense really well, it's Joe Mixon. He's been there. He's one. Him and Tyler Boyd are one of the two that's been in the longest. Let him rush it. It does not always have to be a five wide approach where we go empty and then Joe Burrow's picking his poison to see where he's going to deliver the ball. That defense is really good. We can't just do check downs like all the time because their linebackers are very fast and they can make plays and break up passes like that and screen passes. So we have to come prepared to be able to outperform their defensive scheme because they're already doing it on their own side. But we also have to be able to do the same thing, generating more pressure, generating turnovers. You know, Lamar Jackson is going to be very lethal with his hands. Oh, I'm sorry, with his legs. The reason why he beat you in the last time we played the Ravens with Lamar is that final drive. He ran them all the way to field goal range, and that was because they didn't even run the ball all that much leading up to that point. But now Lamar Jackson, because they need to get in field goal range, he hadn't ran the ball all throughout that evening. He ran them into field goal range, and they cooked the game-winning field goal. You know, Justin Tucker, he doesn't miss, and game was over. That can't be the game script this time around. You can make it another dogfight if you will. In fact, I think it's going to be a dogfight. But what I'm hoping to see is that the Bengals flex their muscles, put last week behind them, and show them that even a team like the Ravens can't hang with Super Bowl contenders like us. We're the team that should be reckoned with. Everybody's selling our stock after week one, but we can't allow that to happen. Joe Burrow, you specifically, and I'll end it on this note because I know we've run a little over 30 minutes now, and I'll end it on this note because I started the game blaming Joe Burrow for week one. I'm not going to move off of that because he deserved the lion's share for why week one didn't go the way that it did. You better not be the reason that we lose week two. I understand that you've still probably battling some issues of not maybe probably being fully 100%, but you're practicing. You're practicing with your guys. You're out there getting those reps. I saw you got the little new haircut. You made me need to get my haircut. Shit, I look stupid right now. You got the fresh cut. Got a good looking fade going on. It's time for you to get shiesty and go shiesty mode on him. You had that opportunity last week to go shiesty mode and you never did. It's time for him to get shiesty and go out there and tell him that you better talk to me nicely because I'm shiesty. I'm cold as icy. I like how I did that little rhyme there. I'm going to be doing a lot of that over the season, you know. But I need to see Joe Shiesty step up and be that leader and be that dog because it's got to happen this week. You can't go 0-2 in the division. You can't go 0-2 to start the season for the second year in a row. And I understand that last year happened the way it happened with us starting out 0-2 and then 4-4 before we went on that what was a 10-game winning streak going into the playoffs as well too. That cannot be the repeated recipe. We did that because our back was against the wall each week that we had tough opponents. And we were being disrespected and developed the y'all got to play us too. You know what I mean? Not no, we got to play y'all, but they got to play us. That's why that was birthed. But this season cannot be that. It's you're that. You're that big dog, and you got to be that big dog. Joe Burrow got to walk out on that field, and it's like I understand Lamar Jackson across the field is across the field from me, and he has uber electrifying talent, but he ain't me. He ain't Joe Shiesty. I'm going to be out here cooking they secondary no matter how much talent they think they invested in that defensive side of the ball. I'm going to still eat you up. And I'm going to send your ass home worse than I sent you home in the first round of playoffs last year. You got to have that mentality, man. Because I don't need to be seeing you Roman skittish in the pocket. Unless health reasons, I understand. But I think that you let Myles Garrett, and I'm talking directly to Joe Burrow as I say this, I think you let Myles Garrett get in your head a little way too much in that Cleveland Browns pass rush last week. That doesn't need to happen this week. Joe Burrow has gone against way different defenses with way more talent around the defensive side of the ball. Dude, you freaking high stepped Chris Jones once upon a time going to AFC Championship game. Chris Jones. You've gone against TJ Watt, throw for throw. And yeah, there were times where he got the best of you, But then there was moments where he had looked up and be like, there ain't nothing I can do. It's Joe Burrow, man. He's cooking us. You went against so many great defenders, including the defenders that's on the Ravens. You can't be letting others get in your head no more. That ends. That has to end. But I understand easier said than done. I'm not the ones playing. They are. So my recipe is just win the damn game. I like to think that they'll find a way to win this game. In fact, I'll predict this to be a nice, grinded out win again. Um, like similar to the playoff game that we saw. But instead, Joe Burrow is actually going to be the reason that we win this game instead of, putting it in the hands of the fumble in the jungle defense that won us that playoff game. I think Joe Burrow is going to look at those two efforts, look at the film that lies ahead that he's watching, I'm sure, devouring, and put it on his shoulders and be like, it's our home opener. We're going to have big timers in here, and we can't let these fans down. We can't put a bad product on the field. Over my dead body, am I going to let this team put a bad product on the field? So final score prediction. I'm actually going to go Bengals 27, Ravens 21. That's where I'm going to go. And, we'll see how this game shakes out. The Ravens have just as much of a chance to win this game as we do. Hell, I didn't think Cleveland didn't have a shot, even though I understand that they've had our number over the years. But look what happened. 24-3. I didn't predict that. I was way off on that. I don't think that happens again. But just because I say something, that doesn't mean that it can't happen again. They're coming hungry. They're coming into our house hungry. They're coming in our house looking to prove that, you know what, that playoff game, we should have won that if we had our guys. Well, you're not going to be fully stocked and ready to rock Baltimore, but while I have given you a lot of respect that you do have a great next man up mentality and approach to how you operate each week on a week-to-week basis, and I do have all the respect in the world for John Harbaugh, again, this division is a tough division. So if you're thinking that you're just going to come in here and then get a nice little win, and Lamar thinking he's going to wear his shades on the sideline like the last time that he did playing in Cincinnati, it's not going to happen, bro. That was a few years ago. This is 2023. So, but anyways, I had fun today. You heard me rant. You heard me rant all over the place. I was happy that I got a chance to do it. Talked about, still not being over week one, but we're moving on to week two. And let's just hope that our Bengals can kind of pull themselves together by the bootstraps and go out there. Let's go kick some ass on Sunday, man. It's Who Dey Nation, baby. Until next time, you guys, thank you so much for rocking with me solo today as I fly this plane solo. Again, my boy B Dirt and maybe potentially Tim and Chase will probably be all on the air, next week. But I actually had fun with you all. So, once again, like, comment, subscribe, send a notification. We're going to go live on all platforms when you get your podcast: YouTube, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Apple. No matter where you get your podcast or you listen to your stuff from, we're going to be there. So until next time, Bengals fans, we are running through the jungle. We going full force.